politics is dangerous. Because in a country where politics becomes the only thriving industry, people will kill and do anything to get there.
The message has been done.
You are taking over now, but you are going to have a flight through very rough weather. You have to be first-class pilots to assure your passengers and assure yourself that you will land safely. And it's only by studying the system well and taking tough measures that you'll get there. Because you are in charge now. By building this party, if the rest of us can only be there to lend some face to it, you are taking over. But you've got to study the system well. You've got to find out who is your friend out there and who is telling you to go the wrong way. Because now they enjoy hearing that Nigeria is a consumer nation. Every kobo you earn from oil is sent back to buy their goods. When you send money to buy their goods, you create jobs in their economy. And deny yourself jobs here. Along with the goods, you bring in poverty. Your own children escape from here to go and look for those jobs in Malaysia, in Korea, in China, in Brazil. They end up in prison or in the grave. I just came back from China. There are 400 Nigerians in Guangzhou prison. I was in Brazil last year, 95 young Nigerians in prison. Go to Malaysia, go to India. They mock us everywhere. The green passport is an embarrassment because we're associated with crime. But yet, there is no country as blessed, as favored as this one. What then is the question? Let me round up. How do you deal with education and what went wrong? How do we get Nigeria to grow her own food and not to transport or ship out $20 billion a year to import food, including rice, wheat, even fruit juice concentrates? If you hear the figures from the CBN, you will. How much we transfer to other economies to bring in these things which we can produce here and create jobs? Why is it that we're short of 20 million housing units in this country? Which makes it impossible for you to take a mortgage and pay in 10, 15 years. Who looks for a plot in London? Nobody does. If you want an apartment and you have the money, you call the mortgage group and they give you. Why? Because a politician in 1945 started a housing program in the UK. At the end of the Second World War, Clement Attlee defeated Winston Churchill. The war hero was defeated. And Clement Attlee, who was his deputy because they had an alliance, he was a Labour Party man, defeated the famous Winston Churchill. And Winston Churchill was so sad, he sat by the fireplace, brooding and weeping. And the wife said to him, "Darling, every disappointment is a blessing in disguise." And Winston replied, "This must be very well disguised because I can't see it." But the man who came along decided that he had to create jobs and wake up the economy of Britain. He began building 500,000 houses a year in and around London. The program continued for 5 years. Even now, as I speak, the councils are still building apartments in London. Here, we are told it's a private sector business. Government has no business in housing, blah, blah. Where on earth do we learn these bad habits? Government has a business to house its people. I was in Egypt not too long ago with the governor of Borno State, and you drive through Egypt, you can't believe the number of high-rises being put up by government so that young people can have access to accommodation. It's your right. Abuja, as you see, this capital territory is 15 times the size of Singapore. Singapore is 650 square kilometers. Abuja is 80,500 square kilometers. But we're short of housing. So one little apartment, we will say 2 million a year. Landlord's fees, lawyer's fee, estate agent's fee. How do you, the younger people, fit in here? Where are you expected to get a collateral in Maitama, VI, to go and give a bank to take a loan? These are issues we have to deal with. Otherwise, you won't create the jobs. You have 129 universities here. They're not admitting 2 million kids. But the University of Cairo has 500,000 undergraduates. One university. What is wrong? Now, industrial growth has come to a halt. Factories are closing down. Unemployment is rising, and our own children, some of you young people are doing terrible things now, pushed there by necessity. Not long ago, I heard of your young men who went to the graveyard somewhere to dig up corpses, cut them off to go and sell the past. That is the descent to barbarism. Ordinarily, who would do that? So we are, I must tell you, many of us weep at the thought of what we have left behind. It's a tragic thing. It has to be corrected quickly. Otherwise, by 2050, when this country's population is 450 million, it will be impossible for anyone to govern this place. I round up by reminding you of the speech of our chairman last week, where he gave attention to the question of women and youth. We will give you, by the grace of God, a place in governance such as you've never found before. And as for the women, we are in very bad shape when it comes to women participation in politics here. We are second from the bottom after Egypt in the whole of Africa. If you go to Uganda, if you go to Burundi, South Africa, in some of the houses of assembly and senates, there are almost an equal share for 50-50 men and women, lots of young people. We have work to do. We have to support the women, support the youth. We have to get you lawyers, find whatever help we can for you to get it. And finally, each one of you must have a second address. The politician who has no address outside the current political office is a liability to his society. And because it then means that if whatever you are told, you have to do it. After all, God told me, what can I do now, as we say in Nigeria. If you oppose, they say, now only you lay there, just keep quiet and chop your own. That's a common philosophy. We're very peculiar people too, we're Nigerians. But it's possible for you to have a second address. We have a provision in our manifesto, section 11. It is titled Access to Capital. We will create, and I want you to inform your young people about this, your colleagues and counterparts. We're going to create 5 new development banks to enable you borrow at 1 digit. And we will resist any brilliant economists from anywhere on God's planet Earth who stands to stand in our way. Because this is what the Chinese have done. And between 1980 and now, China has frightened the whole world with growth. We can't be here watching interest rates at 29, 30%. Unless you're selling cocaine, there is no way you can make it. Then you buy your diesel and do your road and pay tax. It is not possible. It's a shame on all of us that Nigerian governments have sat there pretending this is not an issue. Banks are declaring horrendous profits, 104 billion naira. Some are heading for 200 this year, and we are praising them that the banks have recovered. Well, that sounds like an Indian doctor who says, the operation was successful, but the patient died. Thank you very much, Robert.